I'm Alan Johnson, KU2Y, and this is the CubeSatSim frame assembly video. So we have our board stack complete with the standoffs, and I'm about to connect the battery, and so I've inserted the remove before flight switch here. Now you could use the normal one here with a plug and a tag, but for doing the assembly I like this 3D printed one because it's nice and thin and doesn't get in the way. It's also useful for packing and shipping the CubeSatSim as well. Okay, so my battery board here, I need to plug it into the main board. The JST connector there is inside, and I just need to line it up and put it in place. There we go. And then I'm just gonna put it under here so that it's out of the way. Okay. Now one other thing is, it's a good idea before you do the final assembly, just to double check to make sure that that everything is running. So I'm going to actually take out the remove before flight, and just verify that that things are good. You can see the green activity light on the Pi 0W blinking, so that's a good sign. And in about 30 seconds we should see the green LED turn on, and then we should see the blue LED turn on. And yep, there we go. There's the green LED. And there's the blue LED indicating that we are transmitting. Okay, so with that quick little test, looks like everything is good. And so I'm just going to press and hold down the button here until the green LED blinks slowly, and that will shut everything down. There we go. Now it's blinking slowly, so I can release it. And in a little bit, that will shut down. There we go. And now I put the remove before flight back in. Okay. So we're ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mount it on the bottom of the frame. I use the white piece of the frame here. So there's actually only one way that it will go, so you need to look at the holes to see. And let's see. See which way it goes. There we go. That's the right way. So the 4 holes, this one, that one, and that one. So we're going to use these screws to attach it. But before we do that, we need to route the Pi camera ribbon cable. And see, this side here is where the switches and the LEDs are. So the Pi camera is going to be opposite that over here. So we need the camera to go over here. It needs to face outwards. So it's going to need to to go like this. So that's how I'm going to want to route it. And notice the if you're using the 1.1a board or later, there's a little notch in the stem payload board here for where the camera will be, just to give a bit of clearance there. Okay, so that's how we need that to be. So when we place this on here, we'll do that so that it's like that, and that way it's the ribbon cable isn't exposed elsewhere. Okay, so I'm going to attach the screws here. I'm just going to start each one of them. And sometimes you might have to clean out the holes. With a knife or screwdriver, or sometimes a little drill bit. Okay, all 4 screws are started, so now I can tighten them all up. Okay, so let's have a look here. Looks good. So here is our Pi camera here, and you see the little notch in the stem payload that indicates it's in the right place. Okay. Very good. And notice here how the notches in the boards line up over the SMA connector there. So that's going to be easy when the time comes to connect the SMA cable there, so we can connect the antenna. Okay, so we have the base mounted. So now we're going to start attaching the sides. And first side that we're going to do is the side with the camera. Now, if you don't have a camera, then you're just going to use one of these normal. You're going to have two of these plain sides, and you'll connect that here, and you don't need to worry about it. So this is the frame part for the camera. It's got the cutout and the hole for the LED, and it's got the mounts there. So what we need to do is we need to mount the camera here onto it so that it sits like that. Also, we need to mount the 2 small solar panels here. So I've done that already. So here is this frame panel here, and I've attached the 2 solar panels, which are connected in parallel, and then this is the JST RCY connector. And I've also put in, I ran out of these inserts. I'd normally put 4 of them in, but 2 will hold it in place for that. So I'm going to get it in position here. So get out the screws for the inserts. And actually I think I'm going to tilt this just to make it a little easier. A little bit awkward here. Instead of tilting it, let's try lifting it up. Ah, that's better. That's much better. So having this sitting on something raises it up, and that lets me lower this, and now I have enough. Okay, that's one screw. You can also glue the camera in there too. That works. Okay. So let's have a look. You can see I put in the 2 screws. I would normally put the 4 of them in. And so now I can carefully connect this. Okay. So that looks good. So notice this side with the camera is opposite the side with the switches and LEDs and other connectors. And also notice that the camera is lined up here where the notch is in the top board here, the stem payload board. Okay, so so let's go ahead and connect this solar panel. So you remember we soldered this JST RCY connector. Now the solar panels are labeled by their axes, and we say the plus X is this side here with all the switches and LEDs. So this is plus X. That makes this side minus X. So I have my my cable goes from JST RCY to the JST 2.0 micro, and I've labeled it minus X so that in the future when I'm working on it I know which one is which. So I plug that in. And by the way, when you're plugging and unplugging these, it's a good idea to basically brace your fingers rather than just pull on them. So if I wanted to unplug this, I would brace my fingers together here and then pull them apart, and then that way it just comes like that, and they don't go flying. Okay, so we made the connection, and now this is the minus X, so we need to look on the main board for the minus X connector, And I don't know if you can see it, but it's actually this one here, right in the middle, all the way down there. Maybe it would have been better to plug this in before we plugged in the cable. So I'm going to run it up here. That way I can disconnect it up here in the future. Now that when you're plugging in these connectors, you need to look for the tab. In this case, the tab is facing out. Okay, line him up. Plug him in. Okay. So he is plugged in. So our first solar panel is on the frame and connected. Okay, now next let's do the plus X side. And for that we use this plain frame. So I can put it in place here. Oops, this side just popped off. I'm going to do the screws in a minute. Okay, so now I've got the plus X side on. Actually, I think I'm going to do the plastic screws now, since it seems to be coming a little bit loose. So for this, I have these plastic screws and the nylon nuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the nylon nut in there, and then put my finger on it so that it doesn't come off, and then insert the screw. And then tighten him up. I will fully tighten him once I have the others in place. So do the same here. Put the nut in. Put my finger over it to hold it in place. Insert the screw. And there we go. Now I can tighten this one up. Okay, so that will not fall out. Do the same thing on the other side here. 2 more screws, 2 more nuts. The other thing I like to do is to put a tiny bit of hot glue in when I put these nuts in. That way they stay in there in the future. So when you undo the screw, the nut stays in place, which is handy. Try again. There we go. There's that loose nut finally appeared. Okay. So there we are. We have 4 sides securely attached here. Okay. So now we're going to attach one of the solar panels and have one here. So with this side, we have the switches and the LEDs. So I do not want to put a 90 by 80 millimeter one on because that would cover it up. And if I shifted it, it would stick up above the top. So instead we use one of these 90 by 70 millimeter ones, and that way it's able to go here, so it's not blocking the LEDs and the switches, and it also doesn't go above the edge here. Now notice I still have the protective plastic, so I should peel that off. Okay. And also notice with this one, I just soldered the JST connector on. I didn't do the RCY connectors, but you can do either of them. Okay, now there's a couple of ways that you can mount the solar panels, and it depends on how secure you want it to be. One option is to use the foam, this 3M foam double stick. That's how I did these small ones. You can kind of see the white at the top and bottom there. That's a fairly permanent way to do it. Another way is to use this clear 3M double-sided tape. I've started using this. It's also pretty secure. And then the final way is, if you want it to make it easy to remove the solar panels, such as for access, or if you want to show people what's inside, show them the board stack, show them the components, then this very thin Velcro is handy. So we'll do each of those different ways. For this first one, let's do the 3M foam square. So I've cut 4 of these foam squares, and I'm going to stick them onto each of the corners. Okay, press them on so they're all secure. And now I have to peel the covering here. Can be a pain. Okay, so now we're all set. So this particular one is the plus X. So before I stick it, I'm going to plug it in. here is the plus X connector there. So I'm going to put it in position here, and I'm going to feed the connector through. And then I'm going to insert it. And so that's ready to be inserted. Sometimes you can use your fingers, sometimes you can do it using a small screwdriver. Here we go. So that is the plus X. We did the minus X over here, and this is the plus X. So now I just have to line this up and stick it on there. So I just make sure that it's straight. Looks good. Give it a squeeze, and now that is on there. Now, I don't know if you notice that, oh, it's actually a tiny bit crooked. It's also partially blocking this hole here, but we'll be able to get the screw in there nonetheless. Okay, so we've done 2 of the sides here. So I'm going to pause the video here and continue in part 2 in a minute.